When you want to create traditional form roofs like gables and hips and shed roofs, the footprint roof is the easiest way to do that. But we also have an extrusion roof, and that can be useful for things like barrel vaults or curvy freeform roofs and so on. And so in this movie, I'd like to look at an extrusion roof, and I'm going to build a small little roof awning over a patio that we have on the top side of this building here. So to rotate the building around, I'm going to actually use the view cube. If you come over to the view cube, you'll notice that there's all these little hotspots that highlight when you move your mouse around on here. So I'm just going to access this corner right here and click it. And that will spin the model around to match that orientation. Now, if you want to then zoom in and orbit, you can fine tune. But, the view cube can be nice to kind of just roughly spin you around to that orientation to get you started. Now, let's say that we wanted to put like a little awning roof right here. Now, the best way to do that is going to actually be work in elevation. So this is the west side of the building. So I'm going to double click the west elevation. And now we're looking right at that plane there that we saw in 3D. Let's go ahead and zoom in just a touch. And the first thing that we need to do with an extrusion roof is set what Revit calls the work plane. So I'm going to come over here to the Architecture tab, click the drop down next to Roof, and choose Roof by Extrusion. And that's what it's going to ask me to do. That first question is going to be establish the work plane. Now, the work plane is quite simply the plane that you're going to draw the sketch on. So like other objects that we've created in this chapter, this is going to be a sketch-based object, and we're going to have to sketch the shape of this roof, but we need to do that on some 2D plane. Now, I'm going to use the default option here to pick a plane, and that's because it's going to be real easy for me to actually select the face of the wall that I'm looking at and use that as the work plane. Then Revit will ask me what level I want to associate the roof to, and it really doesn't matter what you choose here, but since level 2 is my highest level, I'll go ahead and accept that default. That puts me in sketch mode, and we can work with many of the similar tools that we've already seen. I'm going to reduce the thickness of this roof to the generic 125 millimeter roof. And then here's the most important difference between this sketch mode and the other ones that we've looked at so far. In this sketch, you're creating an open shape, not a closed shape. So let me show you. I'm going to do something kind of curvy here. So I'm going to do start end radius, and I'll start maybe right about there, go at a slight diagonal like so, and then, a really shallow curve like this with the radius. Now I can continue adding points if I want to. So maybe I want to do another small curve like so and snap it tangent. And however you want to do that, I'm going to just do those two shapes. But notice that I didn't wrap back around and close it on itself. This just determines basically the plane of that roof. And when I click finish here, it's going to apply this type that I chose. And notice that it gives that roof a thickness based on that 125 millimeters. Now it looks a little odd here. It seems like something's a little wrong. So let's go back to 3D and see what happened. By default, when you create an extrusion roof, it will use the depth of the building geometry for the depth of that extrusion. So it extruded right inside the building, pretty much the opposite of what I'd like. So it's really easy to fix this. Notice that there's some control handles at either end. So what I'm going to do is take this control handle and drag it out over the patio to about where I want it to be. Now you can kind of orbit and make sure, that looks pretty good. Now I usually like to, if you look here and see what that did, you can see that the numbers are somewhat random down to decimal points. Let's stretch this one here as well outside the building. So I want to clean that up and kind of round those off to more rational numbers. So in this direction, maybe I'll just do a nice even 3,000. And when I apply that, it'll shorten it slightly. And then in this direction, I could do the same thing, round it off to 550. But what I'm going to do instead, there's a gap right here. So what I'm going to do instead is make the face of that match the face of the wall. And I can do that right here in 3D with my align command. So I'm going to select the face of the wall as my alignment reference. And then I can touch the edge of the roof and it will snap back and snap itself right to the face of the wall. So now when I click on here, you can see that those numbers are very rational numbers and it makes a little bit more sense. I just have a nice 3,000 millimeter roof there. So the extrusion roof is how you can create any of these sort of free form or undulating shapes. It's a very easy tool to use. Just work in elevation, you sketch out the shape you want, and when you click finish, it gives you that nice extruded shape.